The Black Hole. Uh, he said hole. This is Disney's The Black Hole. Yep. Uh, Plenty of black hole jokes we can make here. But this is a movie that is before my time. It's from a simpler era. It feels like it's from like the 1800s for some reason, but it's actually from around the same time we were figuring out how to let Indiana Jones raid the Lost Ark and how to have Luke Skywalker fight Darth Vader and some other things. And post 2001 A Space Odyssey. I don't know why this movie feels so damn old, but it is. It's a 1979 film that is available on Disney Plus with audio description. So why did I watch it? I don't know, because for some reason every time it pops up, I'm always like, what is the black hole and why do I want to watch it? I think it's because I don't know what it is. Like, it's one of Disney's sort of, I think, like live action ventures that just didn't pan out. They never made a ride off of it or anything like that. So, like, when I see 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which I also haven't seen, I'm like, oh, well, I remember the ride. So, that's fine. I don't need, you know. But then when I see the black hole, I'm like, what is it? What is this movie about? So it's always just sort of been this enigma to me. So I finally decided, you know what? What the hell? Let's rip off that rubber band and find out what the black hole is actually about. It stars Anthony Perkins. Yes, it does. Anthony Perkins. Actually, the IMDb cast list on this is really depressingly short, which makes me wonder, like, did they credit the voice cast on this? Is everybody credited? Because there's very few actors that are actually credited in this film. They apparently made this film with like 6 people, which would be amazing, but also kind of shocking. So I kind of feel like the IMDb credits are a little short, to say the least. Directed by a guy whose other credits are mostly television shows. His last credit was Early Edition, so I'm just going to assume he's dead. And go from there. But he also has Freaky Friday on there. He has a 1980s version of Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, which I now really have to say, I was like, wait a minute, there was a 1980 version of Seven Brides. Oh my god, please let me. Where's this remake? And some other things. It's just interesting. His resume is actually a lot more interesting than I gave it credit for. It's a very widespread, wide-reaching resume. This is definitely out of place on his resume. I didn't really see anything else where I was like, oh, he did a lot of science fiction back in the day. Not really. And it kind of feels like that. It kind of feels like it's very slow. I would say this is a really slow movie. Disney's The Black Hole, I don't know if they were marketing it to adults. I wasn't around back in 1979, and I don't know who this was for. I feel like kids would have fallen asleep in theaters. If you're looking for like the Star Wars gang, there's not enough action for that. It's a lot of like talk. It's a lot of talk. I definitely feel like we've seen this movie done since then. Multiple times before, or after, but better. We have a ship that has been sent out as sort of like a research vessel, and they come across a dead in the water ship that is near a black hole. Hello, Event Horizon. Uh, and they approach the ship, and one of the they recognize the ship as being one that the only female on board, her father, would have been on the ship, and so they're like, oh, well, let's hail the ship and see what's up. Let's see what's on the ship. And there's a guy on there, and I gotta say, as a former gamer, as soon as I found out that this dude's name was Reinhardt, I immediately just pictured Reinhardt from Overwatch the whole movie, and it made it so much more entertaining to picture this giant dude with a hammer. Just every time they were talking to, I believe it was Maximilian Schell as the actor. I was like, you know what? Even though I used to be able to see, I can't pull that as an image. I'm going to use Reinhardt from Overwatch because I can pull that as an image. So I just imagine like Anthony Perkins and Ernest Borgnine and some others just sitting there talking to this giant guy from Overwatch. And it just made it so much more fun. This movie needs fun. This movie needs something. It's got to have something going on. They play with a lot of like humanoid, android / robot type stuff. Here, Reinhardt has created himself. He's apparently been incredibly bored, and has created like an entire army of little AI robots all over the ship that most of them can't talk. There is one guy, I can't even say the guy. There's Bob. Bob's a robot that has the ability of speech. For some reason, he sounds like he's from Mayberry. He's like, well, shucks. We gotta go find this thing over here. It's like, what? Their robot, meanwhile, like the other team has one robot, Vincent. And Vincent sounds just like a pretentious British butler. So he walks around like, yes, can I please be reactivated so I can come across and go across? It's very like, okay, well, that's a very obvious choice for robot voice. Meanwhile, on the other end, this guy has programmed Bob to sound like, well, I don't know. We're going to have to check that out. I was like, what's happening in this film? So, yes, it's a very bizarre film. I can see why it has it's a pretty low IMDb score. I'm not gonna say it's like super low. It's not in like the like worst of all time low, but it's in the Danger Will Robinson. Like the IMDb community is trying to warn us in advance, but it's at a level where I've disagreed before, where I've been like, I disagree with that. But it's also from 1979, so I feel like everybody's had the opportunity to have seen this film and watched it, and so the people have probably, it's not one of those things where we rush to judgment because it was released like 2 weeks ago or something, and just not enough people have seen it or sat on it and absorbed it for a period of time. Nah, we've been able to absorb the black hole, and we fully explored, and we reached deep, and we searched and found nothing. Nothing was in the hole. Deep penetration and found nothing. So it is that kind of film. I don't know. The performances are all just like, I don't know. I got nothing. I didn't feel anything. I felt like it was all just typical kind of stuff. I wasn't expecting 1979. The funny thing was, I remembered it being around 1980 in my head. So I was like, okay, so this is, we started making, I was like, okay, so this is going to be like around the same age as Tron. Where was our technology at the time? And I was like, okay, so we had done Star Wars, we did Alien, You know, I felt like it should be around those. For some reason, this feels like it really is with like Planet of the Apes, like with Charlton Heston. Feels like this is I don't know, Forbidden Planet. This is. It just doesn't feel like it's a 1979 movie to me. It feels like it's older than it is, and just in the way that these actors talk, the way that the film is structured, it's um, sort of an intellectual sci-fi piece where there's a lot of talk about concepts and realities. Um, I suppose there's a little bit of a twist with what happened to the rest of the crew, in addition to the fact that there is uh, a gigantic amount of robots on board, and Bob kind of helps them along in putting those pieces together. And did definitely remind me of a film recently in theaters where I was like, oh, so that's not an original concept. We can go ahead and throw that movie out the window. The one thing it's got going for it, perhaps, not actually an original concept, although maybe creatively used in a different way, but not an original concept. Um, and yeah, this is, I don't know. I'm just underwhelmed. The funny thing is, I've for a couple of years now, I've been oddly curious about watching The Black Hole, and been like, I really want to see this. What is this movie about? It's not really cheesy or campy enough to be like the kind of film that you want to get excited about, you know, and be like, oh my god, guys, have you seen this film? Oh, let me tell you about The Black Hole. Doesn't feel like that at all, you know. There are some films from around this time period, 70s, 80s, that are campy, and I get excited, you know. But then there are films that are like, just kind of, what are we doing here? What's going on? And I don't know. Audio description wise, I mean, at like the most basic use of audio description, sure, this is fine. But there are so many different robots that are just kind of described as like humanoid that I don't really know what any of them look like. You know, like sometimes we get something like maybe they had a red cloak. Like I get like a little tiny bit, or they have red eyes, red glowing eyes, or something like that. But I don't really know what these shapes are. So for me, you know, sometimes I just imagine like a C3PO. That's kind of where I was going. I was like, well, this feels like it's an older film. I was like, maybe everybody just looks like C3PO. You do get a pretty solid description of Vincent when he's the only robot in the film. But then suddenly there's like a bajillion robots, and then they're all just kind of like, yeah, there's some humanoid robots walking around. I was like, well, this is kind of disappointing. Can we get a little bit more of a description of some of these? Like, I felt like I knew Vincent better than I did Bob. And once Bob is introduced, they kind of basically share the screen together and have relatively the same amount of screen time. So, um, I don't know. I feel like the most interesting part of the film, considering they're trapped on a ship, they don't really, you know, they're not doing a lot of moonwalks, spacewalks, whatever, black hole walks. Um, there isn't a lot of crazy special effects. They don't do much with the black hole. It's just there. It's I'm just gonna. This is not something where they're like, like tripping through time, and they're like, "Whoa, this is really weird. Look at all these crazy special effects we did." No. This is more of like a psychological drama on board. This is like Event Horizon. If Event Horizon had been directed by, I don't know. I can't even come up with a director who would be even appropriate for this film. if Event Horizon had been from the director of the slowest film ever, I can't even find the right director. Just take everything out of Event Horizon that makes Event Horizon, and yeah, just throw it out the window. And I don't know who does The Chosen as a TV series. I would be kind of imagine be like if he remade Event Horizon, what it would go like. I feel like it would be really slow. Or whoever's directing Virgin River, like there's just like sort of like an empty olive show. Yeah, there's nothing here. There's nothing. I can't grasp onto anything. The characters are all just kind of like they exist. I feel like probably Maximilian Schell has the most rangy performance because he's the wild card. He's the crazy man that's on a ship by himself with a bunch of robots. But even his performance is very restrained because obviously he's like a classically trained actor, and he's like, I'm not gonna give you that kind of performance. That would go over the top and would be actually interesting. So he takes the old school Sir Laurence Olivier, less is more approach to being a villain. And it just none of it really works. Disney probably spent a lot of money on this, and in 1979, if I had been a Disney executive and somebody showed me this, I'd be like, so we're going to do some reshoots before we release this film. Because no one actually wants to see this. I promise you that. And we have a little problem. It's called Star Wars. It's already been released. So there's an expectation of what a sci-fi film is nowadays. It's not this. If this predated Star Wars, I'd be a little bit kinder to it. I would be. If I found out this was like 1975, even, I think I would have been nicer to it. But it's 1979, so there's no excuse. Ridley Scott was about to do some crazy shit with Alien. We had just done some Star Wars shit. Like sci-fi was evolving. I don't feel like this is evolving. So, audio description let me down kind of on the robots. The rest of the stuff is kind of fine. They don't really go anywhere. The spaceship is decently well described. I can't imagine it's that interesting. Nothing in this film is really that interesting. They do kind of describe the black hole, but the film is actually not really about the black hole. It's just called The Black Hole. This film is mainly about like a crazy dude on a ship, but Crazy Dude on a Ship is not really the name of a movie. So, yeah, I'm gonna give The Black Hole a D+. I don't know. Maybe it's, I don't want to just be that guy that's like, it's old, so I don't like it, but I just don't know that this was even good in its time period. I feel like it's one of those films that you just look at and you're like, man, we've already made advances. Did you not get those advances? Did you not download the latest updates? Do you not have access? There's nothing really here to get excited about. I feel like because this was 1979 and we've seen movies since then, there have been films that are like this that have similar concepts that are just better. We've tackled the black hole concept 1,000 times over by now in other space-related content. So it's really hard to come back around to this and be like, well, the black hole started it all. I don't know that it even started it all. There's probably another sci-fi film that's better than this before this. It's just slow, and I have no idea why Bob speaks like he's from like, I don't know, the Beverly Hillbillies. Like I have no idea. It's a very weird choice. I was like, with Vincent, I was like, well, feels on brand. You know, you hear the rest of the cast and the way they're speaking, and then Vincent's robot comes along and he's speaking that way, and then Maximilian Schell kind of matches the same sort of vocal tone, and then we've got Bob, who just comes along. Well, I don't know what we're going to be doing here. We gotta. I'm just like, what is this programmed voice? So, anyway, that's it. That's what I got. Bob from the Apple Duckle Gang or something. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please click subscribe. Stay with me, and we'll continue to talk about random films like The Black Hole. I have a feeling this is going to get like 2 views. So if you're one of the 2 people, I appreciate you. And you can also follow me by going to MacTheMovieGuy.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Threads at MacTheMovieGuy. You can go to the Audio Description Project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what is audio description, where you can watch it, and you can go to the adna.org. That's the adna.org. It'll let you know who's narrating your favorite films and television series. That's it for me today. I will review something else, and see you guys on the other side.